Doom of Dimensions brought with it a couple of decently powerful archetypes that Genesys format elected not to hit in an effort to let them cook for a little bit and see where they end up landing power level wise. Meaning I have a limited time to show you the power that Radiant Typhoon brings to one of my favorite decks of all time, Speedroid. For those who don't know, Speedroid is a deck from Arc V that makes Synchro monsters and has pretty restrictive locks to the Wind attribute. Terratop and Takatomborg specifically are also used to make rank 3s in a variety of decks, hence the assigned points despite the Speedroid deck never really seeing any competitive success. In Genesys format, which should be a perfect place for Speedroid to take the stage with the powerful support they've gotten over the past few years, the lack of pendulums and links have actually pretty significantly hampered the deck. Enter Radiant Typhoon, the new archetype from Doom of Dimensions that's based around the classic quick play spell Mystical Space Typhoon. This deck is entirely made of wind extenders and dual modal quick play spells that can either perform a powerful function in the deck or grab MST. The larger monsters in the deck also perform powerful interruptions that really bolster the end board. Plus, the deck has a continuous trap that actually makes MST a negate. Isn't that funny? Aren't you laughing? Free wind extenders with some extra end board pieces? Sign me up. I've actually got two builds for the deck, one that's a little lower to the ground and gets to play with a few power cards, yet still leaves room for potential Radiant Typhoon point hits, and a higher ceiling one that eschews all of that for one big Baronne-shaped bomb. Let's see how they all work with a card by card, starting with the lower ceiling one. Speedroid Terratop hardly needs any introduction, as its 3 points each for a total of 9 points serves as a badge of honor for the many years where it functioned as a rank 3 tool. If your board is clear, you can summon it for free, and on summon, you can search a Speedroid card. Simple, elegant, perfection. But what to search? Well, here's an easy answer. You're searching Takatomborg. It's an incredible card, summoning itself if you control a wind, and then it can tag out into a Speedroid tuner from your deck, making any tuner easy to access so long as you don't draw them. The tag out effect includes a wind lock though, just so you're aware. But what if you already have Takatomborg? Well, then you'll be searching Car Turbo, which is a tuner that summons itself like Takatomborg, but with a windlock already baked in. Just gives you an extra tuner on the field, which is really nice for unlocking our extra deck. In the grave, it can also banish itself and another Speedroid to boost the attack of all your wind monsters by 800, which is good for pushing for lethal or clearing high stat boards. Even here in Genesys format, we are still on the one Duke, because while it reads like a mid card, it is just so good. Doesn't do a damn thing until it hits the grave, but then it can banish itself to summon a Speedroid tuner from the grave or hand, letting you get more use out of Car Turbo. Since you can just summon the Duke with Takatomborg, we only really need the one, which is very good since again, it doesn't do anything otherwise. Okay, if you're at all familiar with me, you've seen the red-eyed dice here on the screen, and you're confused about the presence of red-eyed dice in the deck. I've said many times that I hate this card and never want to play it again. That's because while it does open up a lot of extra deck options with its level modulation effect, it is a hard garnet. That means if you draw this card, Takatomborg can't summon it out of the deck, and your entire combo falls apart. So why am I playing it here? Well, red-eyed dice can activate on normal summon, and this deck doesn't really need to use its normal summon most of the time, and definitely doesn't need it while going first, where the full Speedroid combo is most effective. Since we've managed to change dice from a hard garnet into a soft garnet, I'm willing to let it in again. Now, we're not in any of the Speedroid spells or traps because they're all only okay, and we need room for the really good Radiant Typhoon cards. So let's look at those now. Sven or Swen, I don't know which, can summon itself if you have MST in the grave or if your opponent doesn't control any spell traps with which you can MST. If your opponent does have spell traps, Sven is an ideal normal summon because it can grab a Radiant Typhoon spell trap or MST. Now, all the Radiant Typhoon spells can grab MST, but there's no reason to taunt Droll if you just need to unlock your ability to summon Radiant Typhoon monsters. Eldom has the same summoning condition, and then on summon grabs a Radiant Typhoon monster, or MST, making it another good normal if you're locked out of the special summon condition. Megala is another powerful level 3 in the deck, but unlike the others, isn't really a play starter, so we only play the one copy. It has the same summon effect, and then when a Radiant Typhoon Quick Play or MST is activated, you can summon any Radiant Typhoon with a different name from those you control from your deck in exchange for a Wind Lock. This lets you get out some of the bigger guys that don't summon themselves for free easily. Speaking of, Crocia, which for some reason can't be destroyed by battle or card effects while the opponent doesn't control spell traps. It can summon itself from the hand, but only if you play a Quick Play spell. Luckily, we are playing a lot of those, but it's still more restrictive than the level 3s. On summon, it searches a Radiant Typhoon card and an MST at the same time. It can even pull them from the grave. It locks you into wind, of course, but who cares? We play only winds and it's so much advantage. That's why we run 2. It is just that good. Now we have some boss monsters, starting with Phonix the Great Flame. It has the same summoning condition as Crocia, and another one from the grave when specifically MST is activated, which you'll want to keep in mind. When a quick play is activated, this guy lets you shuffle back 2 cards your opponent controls, which is kind of insane. Really powerful creature. Then we have Varurun, the Vibrant Vortex, which has the same summoning conditions as Phonix. Its on-field effect gives you a monster negate if you have MST in the graveyard, which also pops if the second one is in there. Pretty neat, although we are kind of swimming in monster negates if we draw into the Speedroid engine. Although that is an if. That's the keyword, if. Now for the Radiant Typhoon spell traps. We have 3 of the Rhoda, of course. It's Rhoda. All of these quick plays can set themselves if you pop them with MST, just to have activated an MST for the sake of the deck, and they all have a second effect to search an MST or recover it from the grave. Chant's primary effect is to grab a level 4 or lower Radiant Typhoon, which means all of our level 3 playmakers. Now the primary effect and the secondary effect of all of these can actually both be activated in the same turn, so drawing or searching multiples is no problem. Summoning Technique, despite its name, is actually a foolish burial for Radiant Typhoon monsters in addition to all of those other effects, which sets up the large monsters to summon themselves when MST is activated. That's why it's called Summoning Technique. This one actually just kind of sucks though, because that's all it does, but it is a name, so 3 of it we shall play. When that new Radiant Typhoon spell comes out, I might cut this one down to 1. Vision lets us draw 2 and then discard a Radiant Typhoon card or a quick play spell. If you don't have one, you discard your whole hand, and considering our hefty Speedroid package, you might want to be a little careful with that. But still, that amount of cycling the deck is quite handy, so you definitely want some of these in your deck. Now we have our Continuous Trap. This card can similarly reset itself if popped by MST and turns MST into a negate. Cute. It also lets you recycle 3 quick plays in the grave for a draw, and then increases the attack of your wind monsters by a measly 300. More draw power? Don't mind if I do! Then we have to MST the classic Spell Trap Destruction. You don't really need 3, but you do need more than 1, leaving us at the only number in between, 2. I don't like the 2 ratio index, but it is what it is. Sometimes you just gotta have it. Crocia and Space Typhoon both deserve that number. Now for non-engine, we have 3 Forbidden Droplets at 10 points each for a total of 30. This is simultaneously one of the strongest board breakers in the game and also a quick play which synergizes with Radiant Typhoon. You can chain it to an MST to send the MST and get the value from both. Isn't that cool? And next we have everyone's favorite pack filler come Genesys format staple, Final Bringer of the End Times. You pop a monster on your field to pop a card on their field. Simple as. Since our playstarters don't really do anything on the field if you can't use them as extra deck material for one of many reasons, they become easy fuel for Final Bringer. Now to the extra deck. Let's start with our backup plan in case of limited tuner access, the Ixies package. We have 2 basic options and then 1 slap-on option once we are out of the windlock. Totem Bird is our first option, which detaches 2 to negate a spell trap. Not a bad idea with so many monster negates in our deck. Meanwhile, Cicada King is just another monster negate, specifically for 1 on the field for the cost of 1 detach. It also boosts up its defense by 500. Ooh! Because it's a 1 detach instead of a 2, it's got more uses than Totem Bird, but also may overlap more with interactions you already have. A decision you'll have to make based on the situation. Dragon Gate is the fun new combat tool for any deck that makes rank 3 or lower Ixies monsters, or I guess rank 6 engines as well. It's Earth, so watch for your locks, but it can slap on top of a rank 3 or lower Ixies monster, and then can attack all monsters when it controls, and can detach any amount of material. It gains 1000 attack, and the opponent's monsters lose 1000 attack from each card type detached. In our case, that's 1, since we can't really get spells or traps under this guy. When it comes to attack position monsters though, that's essentially making this guy a 3100 attack monster that can attack every monster on the field. Good for clearing decently sized guys, or a lot of guys, and doing a lot of damage in the process. Shame it doesn't win though, then we can make it really big. Now for the synchros, from lowest level to highest. That means we start with the impossibly small Cork Shooter. Cork Shooter is a very powerful card, but one I frequently cut because there's so few ways to make it an engine. You're either using Ultra Hound or Red-Eyed Dice. That's it. I've already gone over my problems with the dice, but Ultra Hound is an actual normal summon for the deck, so why not that? Well, it requires a hard Garnet, Duplicate, to actually make Cork Shooter, since it steals a level from the Hound to summon itself from the grave as a level 1 tuner. If you draw a Duplicate, it's not an awful card. It lets you banish a Wind and Grave to bounce an opponent's card, but it completely turns off Ultra Hound. And then, when you use Ultra Hound to make Cork Shooter, it turns off one of the effects of the card. So on summon, Corkshooter can either search a Speedroid spell trap or summon the materials used to make Corkshooter from the grave, but only if the materials are all Speedroid monsters and currently in your graveyard. Duplicate may be a Speedroid card, but it's not a Speedroid monster, so you can't summon them back. That means you can only use the search, and what spell traps are you searching for in this deck? You want to run another Duplicate? All of that for a single bounce? What about Clearwing Wonder? Oh, how many different types of Synchro monsters are you intending to make? We have a ton of different types in this deck, but your ability to make several of them in one turn is severely limited, especially without Corkshooter's extension effect. If you're only ending on one type of Wind Synchro, you're doing all of this for a single pop. And you still have to run Duplicate, meaning 5 cards and 1 extra deck slot for a singular pop, or a bounce if you draw a Duplicate and hard brick the entire line. And those are the only search targets even worth considering. It gets worse from there. So all of that makes Corkshooter a usual cut for my Speedroid decks, but as I said earlier, the fact we could just freely normal summon red-eyed dice to unbrick yourself means I'm willing to go in on Corkshooter since that resummon effect is insane. It's crazy. I mean, you still have to have another non-tuner Speedroid in hand and the ability to summon it, but hey, it's already so much better that I'm willing to look beyond that. When you resummon the red-eyed dice, and it basically has to be Terratop because you can't special summon Takatomborg in the same turn that you already special summoned it, the dice gets to activate again to let you make a level 5, Hagoida. Hagoida is a simple but powerful card. If you control a Speedroid tuner monster, you can summon Hagoida from the grave. Just a free level 5 Synchro monster every single turn. You can use Hagoida and Corkshooter to go into a Crystal Wing, and then a Takatomborg or Card Turbo can let Hagoida come back to make a second one. Cool! You can also make Glider 2. Where is Glider 1, Konami? Glider is a level 5 Synchro tuner good for making over Synchro Dragon, and it can recycle the Clear Wing if you find a way to use that before making it. The other reason to bother turning Terratop into a 2 with dice to make this is that in the grave you can banish it to increase the opponent's monster's level by 5, which puts them in range for a Crystal or Clearing effect, and also just instantly kills any Ixie's deck for the turn. Next we have some 6s, which we can easily use our Radiant Typhoon guys as material with our normal Speedroid tuners. First is Raptite with its DD Crow effect. If you need to end on a 6 for some reason, this is a decent one. Then we have Stardust Charge Warrior, who draws a card, making it a good Synchro ladder. It can also attack every monster the opponent controls, so with the attack boost of Card Turbo and the Continuous Trap, you can actually do some Dragon Gate style board clearing. Now we have a singular 7, which you have to make with the red-eyed dice, and then you use like a 6, which you may have made with Synchros, or it could be Crocia, or you could turn Terratop into a 6 with dice, or perhaps you could use a couple of 3s if you can't turn those into a 6 for lack of tuners for some reason. And hey, it's the OG Clearwing! It does have a negate for a level 5 or higher monster on the field, and a negate for effects that target level 5 or higher monsters. That's actually more useful here in Genesys format than it is in main format thanks to the removal of Link monsters, but generally if you're making this guy instead of Crystal Wing, is to use it as material for the big over Synchro Dragon. And that's because Crystal Wing is not only my favorite card, but the Crystal Wing line lets you make 2 of them, and all you need is just 1 tuner extender, or potentially you just need to draw into a tuner next turn to make a second one. So if you only have access to the Speedroid lines through 1 singular card, and you expect to maybe draw into something next turn, you can make Crystal Wing, and just sit on that. And then make it again next turn. Terratop adds Takatomborg, which summons and tags out for the dice, which makes Terratop a 2 to make the Corkshooter, and then summons the stuff back. Dice makes Terratop a 4 this time, and then you make Hagoida a Synchro for the material requirements. Cork and Hagoida make 1 Crystal Wing, and a Carturbo or a Duke let Hagoida come back to make a second one. Then you have 2 soft ones per turn monster negates that are pretty tricky to out thanks to the attack gain and the other attack gain effect where it basically honests itself while fighting a level 5 or higher monster. Without Link monsters and with Baronne being so expensive and relegated to the other version of this deck, this is one of the most powerful endboard pieces in the game, so I'm very eager to slap 2 of these down on the board and then do all of our Radiant Typhoon combos on top of that. Incredible! We have a couple of 9s, starting with the one we will usually be making, Wolf Riot. That may seem weird since the other option is Shen Shen, but I'll explain that later. Wolf Riot is a neat little card that gains 300 attack each time a monster's effect is activated until it has 4,000 attack. Once it does, it can return to the extra deck to shuffle every monster the opponent controls. A powerful board wipe for only 5 effect activations, and those 5 effect activations can come from you and your opponent. They both count. You can also cheat it with your own stat adjustment effects, which is even funnier. Not a bad use of a tuner and a couple of spent guys. Shen Shen is also here for 20 whole points, which is a pretty powerful floodgate on legs, but that comes with a cost, even beyond all those points. You see, Shen Shen also banishes your cards that leave the field, and while it can return the monsters it banishes when it attacks, it can't return the spell traps, and we need to have MST in our graveyard. If it gets banished, we have no way of getting it back, so you gotta think long and hard before you drop this guy on the field. Next we have Crystal Clearwing, which you can make after you make Clearwing after making Corkshooter, but if you have any extender you might as well make over Synchro instead with a level adjusted Corkshooter. And if you're on the Baronne build, then buddy, you're making Baronne instead. What are you doing? But this is also your float target for over Synchro, so let me explain it anyways. Crystal Clear can make itself unaffected by the activated effects of your opponent's monsters for the turn in response to a monster effect, and then steals the monster's attack stat like Crystal Wing does. Then it has a Spell Trap negate to pair with Crystal Wing's monster negate, except it's tough to get them both on the field at the same time. Not impossible, but it requires an incredibly specific hand of Terror Top, one of the extenders, and one of our bricks, Duke or Dice, and then also access to your Radiant Typhoon engine for bodies. A truly 1 in a million hand that could also just make over Synchro Dragon instead. But how it works is you do the Crystal Wing combo, but you save the Corkshooter and just use the Duke as the tuner instead. Then you use the Duke to get back the dice, and then get a 6 or 2 3s on the field to make Clearwing, then use Corkshooter to make Crystal Clearwing. Then you go Carturbo and Hagoida effect Engrave for the second Crystal Wing. You have to hold off on that because you need the monster zones. But again, don't worry about that too much though, it will not come up very often, and if it does, there's probably better plays you could be making instead. But you can't argue too much with 2 monster negates and a spell trap negate though. Finally, we have the Over Synchro Dragon, made with the Clearwing combo where you activated the dice effect to change Corkshooter to a level 5, or you change Terror Top to a 2 to make the Glider number 2 instead. Over Synchro has an Omni negate, and if it negates a monster, it gets to steal their attack points, just like Crystal Wing. When it leaves the field, it can float into a Crystal Clearwing. Surprisingly simple for a boss monster, but simplicity is power in Yu-Gi-Oh! So that's the lower to the ground build, which I expect to adjust better to both points adjustments and shifts in the meta since it has extra points to go around. Now let's look at the Baronne build. So to fit in Baronne, we need to ditch every pointy card except for Terror Top, so bye bye Shen Shen and bye bye Droplets. To replace the Droplets, I just went with Wind to make it easier to access Terror Top, which is really pivotal to our Baronne combo. This deck has a lot of monsters that it's perfectly fine with discarding, and they're all wins, so it works pretty well. It is very unlikely to ever be dead in hand, it just might not be as useful in hand as you'd like. You could replace this with another quick play spell, like maybe the upcoming Radiant Typhoon spell or something to replace the functionality of Droplets, or you could perhaps just replace it with a standard Genesys non-engine piece like DD Crow. Then in the extra, we replace Shen Shen with the only Baronne de Fleur. Omni Negate in a pop is still just as insane as it once was. It's probably even worth all those points we invested. You can easily drop this with just Terror Top by just doing the Crystal Wing combo but making Terror Top a 6 instead to make the Clear Wing, and then sync with the Corkshooter for 10. If you have Radiant Typhoon as well, you can make Over Synchro with Glider and Grave, and if you have Carturbo or one of your bricks in hand, you could do the double Crystal Wing line. If you have both, you could do this super cool Baronne plus Over Synchro line thanks to Glider's revival effect of Clear Wing. Just use Carturbo or Duke to sync with Clearwing into Baronne, and then use the Corkshooter and Terror Top to make Glider, and then bring back Clearwing to make Over Synchro. Simple as that. So that's our 2 decks, with 2 powerful wind engines both running at speed. But how do these 2 archetypes function together? Let's check that out in some replays. So here we are with the first replay. We're up against Yubel, which is still decently playable without the Link monsters. I think there's some cool things you can do with it, it's just not as good. We have not drawn any Speedroid stuffs though, so I'm going to show you what happens when you don't have any access to your Speedroid, it's just Radiant Typhoon. We're going first, so we're going to get the Megala out, and then activate a quick play spell to activate the Megala effect. We'll draw 2, discard 1, activate Megala to summon the Crocia effect to add 2. We'll get the Continuous Trap and the MST, which will be in the gate now. Eldum Summon to grab a monster, we'll grab the Phonics, and then we'll summon the Sven to grab the Foolish Burial. We'll activate the Chant to add another Radiant Typhoon monster from deck to hand, just to get some follow-up for next turn potentially, but also to activate the effect of the Phonics in hand to summon it. Now we have an end board piece, and then we make Cicada King with our 2 random 3s there, and then we're going to go ahead and add another MST to hand, just to give us another option on the board at the end. We don't really need the chant for anything. So they're going to Lightning Vortex, which is unfortunate. We're going to flip up the Radiant Typhoon Mandate. We really should have opened this up beforehand. We'll pop, but they're going to just pop our board. If we had flipped up the Radiant Typhoon Mandate in the standby phase, it would have been ready to activate with the MST and ready to go. We are going to be able to set that back, that Radiant Typhoon quick play spell. They're going to go Dark Beckoning Beast, grab the continuous spell, but the thing about continuous spells is you can negate them when you pop them. And that's going to get back the Phonics, so now we have access to a thing again. Unfortunately, though, because of the way we sequence this, Phonics is not going to be able to do anything because we hit the Radiant Typhoon and resummoned it, so now it is set again, so we can't activate it this turn. Otherwise, we would have been able to quick effect just send something, anything, and use its effect to bounce shit. But we'll just watch them, you know, do a little bit of comboing here. They're going to set the Eternal Favorite with the Spirit of Yubel. They're going to go battle, hit us for 33. Remember, we gained 300 attack from the continuous trap. Then they're going to go Phantom of Yubel. We draw Forbidden Droplet off the top, and we use the Speedroid dice, which doesn't do anything on this board because we don't have any Speedroids on the field at all. We're just going to send that for Forbidden Droplet, negate the Spirit of Yubel, send away the 2 back row. That doesn't do anything because I'm sending it away. Summon Sven, go Radiant Typhoon Summoning Technique, grab the MST back from the grave, grab the Rhoda, and they're just going to go ahead and scoop it up because the game is well and truly over. So that's what the deck can do without access to the Speedroid stuff. But what if you have access to a little bit of Speedroid stuff? We're up against Battle Wasp, and we've got a little bit of Speedroid extension with our Radiant Typhoon engine going. Let's see what we can do. We're going to go Eldum first. Eldum grabs Sven. They're going to droll. Okay, not a problem. We're going to go Takatomborg. Takatomborg get Duke. We're going to sink for 2 into Raptite. We'll go Speedroid, and then we'll make Wolf Riot. We should have just made... See, we would have made Charge Warrior, but for the Droll and Lockbird. There's no reason to make Charge Warrior when the Droll and Lockbird hits the field. We are going to go Sven here, but specifically so we can just go into Cicada King and set our 2 cards, Final Bringer and Mystical Space Typhoon. We lose out on the search effect from the Sven, but I felt it was necessary to just get a little bit more end board on here. But then they go in Dark Ruler No More Us, so c'est la vie. They are just going to go normal summon Resonance Insect attack, though, so, you know, it didn't really matter too much. In the main phase 2, they're going to do Battle Wasp stuff. They're going to try and activate that Battle Wasp Wind, but again, we have MST. See, the cool thing about MST is that nobody, like with Radiant Typhoon, you just have access to the most quick play, like, spell trap removal in the game. And that can really hose some decks. We're going to Final Bringer just the Cicada King and their monsters just to really take them off of anything as they summon this. They do get the Assault Roller up. I was not expecting the Assault Roller. And then they are able to go Goki Pull and get the Killer Needle out on the field. We draw Takatomborg. That doesn't really do anything, so we're just going to pass. They draw another Assault Roller. They're going to bring that out. They have a decent amount of attack here, but it's not quite lethal. We've gotten into a really simplified game state, but anything off the top could do it, and Terror Top is much more than anything. Terror Top grab Carturbo because we already have the Takatomborg. Takatomborg effect. Grab the Takatomborg. We're going to make this Red-Eyed Dice. Here's the combo, folks. We're going to make that 2. We're going to make the Corkscrewder effect, summon everything back. In this instance, we're going to go make that a 4 because we want to make the double Crystal Wing line because double Crystal Wing is going to do a lot of damage. Carturbo, Hagoida, make it second Crystal Wing. And then we're going to go Carturbo to do even more damage. We're going to leave them on 1,100, not hitting any of these Assault Rollers because they can just do shit. They draw DD Crow for turn, and they don't have any out to our 2 Crystal Wings. So they're going to call it there. That's the power of Speedroid, baby. It just really increases the ceiling, and if you get cleared, but you get into the the terror top, like it just really opens up. So this deck is extremely flexible, and I want to show that off with a third replay here. Our opponent is on rank 4 spirits, I guess. We're going to go the Rhoda to get the Eldum effect. Or the effect of Phonics, I mean, to summon itself. Eldum summon. We're going to grab the Sven. I forgot that we did summon the Phonics off of that. It's so crazy that what these guys can do. They're actually going to Herald the Orange Light. Now, because I see the Herald come down and negate our Sven, I assumed that they're on some ritual stuff. I did not realize that they were on this rank 4 stuff, so I'm going to actually pivot here. We're going to go into Stardust Charge Warrior, and then we're going to go Takatomborg. But instead of going for a 3 to make like a Shen Shen or Wolf Riot, I'm actually going to go into the Red-Eyed Dice and make the Clearwing. Now the thing is, we actually have the the Clearwing is a good card. It'll be able to negate the higher level ritual guys. But what I didn't remember is that we use the Duke. So since we use the Duke, we can bring back the Red-Eyed Dice and just make Crystal Wing. So there's a little dirty Crystal Wing for you. Actually, pretty more the intended way of making it. They're going to go 7th Tachyon, one of my favorite cards in this format. They're going to use it to grab Ichiki Sayori Hime, a card I'd never heard of before in my life. They summon the Nikitama, and then they go Ichiki Sayori Hime. I negate that because it seems like a pretty dang powerful card to me. They can summon the second Nikitama and make Exciton Knight. They go for it. I'm just going to clear them out while they're doing this. Nope's looking off my nose. We draw into Crozia. Doesn't really do anything, but we're going to go Takatomborg, grab Car Turbo, just for that extra little damage. 800 in. They draw. I love that this game gets into like this. I love that Genesys format gets into these simplified game states so much more than regular Yu-Gi-Oh does. We grab the Sven. That's all she wrote. We're going to Sven, and they're going to surrender. With the 7th Tachyon in hand and the empty board, there's just nothing they can do against that. All right, and I have one last replay. I know I don't usually do 4. I need to do a 4th one, though, because we have a second build of the deck, and I need to show you what that build does. So here we go. We're up against Infernity. We're going to go Speedroid Terratop. Add the Duke at this point, because we already have everything else we need. Takatomborg. Grab the Red-Eyed Dice. Red-Eyed Dice effect. Make it a 2. Sync for the Corkscooter. Corkscooter effect. Summon it all back. We'll make that a 2 instead of a 4, because we're going to go the glider line. Eldum summon. Eldum grab Sven. Sven summon. Sven grab a quick play. We're going to grab the Rhoda, of course. Then we're going to sync off for the Clearwing. We're going to Car Turbo, summon, make Baronne, and then summon the Glider. Glider's going to summon back the Clearwing. Then we can make over Synchro Dragon, but that's not all, because we also have the Duke in hand and a win that we can use to go grab another piece of the puzzle. We'll go grab Crozia, and then we'll chant. Chant's going to get us to hand the Megala that we haven't summoned yet, and it's going to trigger the effect of the Crozia in hand to summon itself. That's going to let us add the Continuous Trap and the MST. We'll go Megala. We'll go Duke. Summon back the Car Turbo. Sync those two out for Wolf Riot. Set the Continuous Trap and the MST. That's a formidable fucking board. Look at that. We've got an Omni Negate on Over Synchro Dragon that also floats into a Spell Trap Negate. We've got an Omni Negate on Baronne de Fleur, who also can pop when it comes round to our turn. We've got Wolf Riot, the board wipe. And we've also got a negate off of MST, and the MST will also trigger Megala to summon back, summon one of the bigger guys to the field, like perhaps the Monster Negate of Varurun. They're going to upstart Goblin, grab a card. Now, again, so part of the problem with Radiant Typhoon Mandate is that you really just need to get it on the field as soon as possible. If you're late on that, you're not going to be able to use the negate effect because it's just something that applies while it's already up and MST activates. So you really just should be activating it in the standby phase, but like if you do that, they can clearly see where it is and which one is the MST as well. It's frustrating. It's frustrating design that way. It's frustrating that the ruling works that way, I guess is more accurate. But that is just how they made the deck. It's really just got something you got to flip up in the standby phase, and I just wasn't used to doing that yet when I was doing these replays. So just flip it up. Just flip it up as soon as possible. Also, I will say, Dueling Nexus's ability to chain in the first turn is abysmal. So that's another aspect of it. Dueling Nexus is a little awkward that way. We're gonna pop their drag down into the grave. They're going to discard their entire hand with Infernity Sage. They're gonna go Creepy Little Punk. We're gonna negate that shit. Since we did go MST, we're able to get the Varurune. And then since they weren't able to Creepy Little Punk, they're gonna surrender. I mean, like, it is still, like, even without the MST negate, it is still 3 negates and a fucking board wipe. So, yeah, I mean, like, they didn't have anything going for them at this point. That board was basically unbeatable. So the Baronne build of the deck is crazy powerful. It is a trade-off, though. It is a bit of a trade-off, because no more Forbidden Droplet, and no more Shen, although the Shen is kind of, whatever. So what do you think? Not bad for Speedroid without pendulums and links, eh? Radiant Typhoon is so powerful on its own, and Speedroid just really cranks up that ceiling without fucking up our ratios or anything. In the worst case, Speedroid will eat up the limited interactions your opponent has available, and will let you run wild with Radiant Typhoon. In the best case, it'll make your end board too formidable for most to crack. If Radiant Typhoon gets pointy in the next update, hopefully my lower to the ground option will give you a good foothold to start from in updating the build. Remember, Shen isn't that great in this specific deck, so you can always pull that out of there too. I hope you enjoy my contribution to the wind attribute community, and I hope it brings you some wins. Get it? Wind and win? They kind of sound similar. Yeah, anything? Hey there, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I've got a lot more for you if you want them. Just hit that subscribe button and ring the bell to get notifications. I'd also appreciate if you left me a like and a comment and maybe shared the video around with your friends. You can also follow me on all the usual social media sites. Just check out my website in the description below for more info. My videos are funded by my patrons, Ko-fi subscribers, and YouTube members, whose names you'll see scrolling by in these credits here. For just $1 a month, you too could find yourself here, trapped in my end screen for all eternity, among other benefits. In particular, I'd like to thank Jeremy Coatney, Frog Prince Michael, Fleakill, Haru Hayes, the Almighty Ferret Lord, Fire Mizumi, Beastman, Bryn, and Beelzis. A big thanks to all my patrons and to my little community as a whole. Remember to be kind to yourselves, be kind to others, and have a wonderful whatever time it is for you. Bye-bye.